Welcome back to the Challenger Podcast. I'm Dave Glazer in Denver, Colorado. On this week's episode, I want to welcome back Jessica Smith for the fourth time being my guest on the podcast. In today's episode, we dig deep into what discernment looks like when beginning dating, how much do we share, what becomes an overshare, and how do we approach sensitive topics like how to define the relationship, who else are we seeing, and how quickly we're going to move forward in this relationship. Additionally, in today's episode, we discuss a lot about defining the relationship and what it means when the masculine claims the feminine. Jessica Smith and I are old friends, so we have a lot of familiarity when it comes to each other's story, both personal, professional, and shared mutual interests in the relationship, personal growth, and dating space. That affords us a lot of opportunity to talk about relationships in both conceptual and practical terms. So at the very end of this episode, stick around because we're going to give you 3 steps for the men who listen to this podcast to take as recommendations on how to take the lead in the relationship. Before we get into today's episode, I want to thank each and every one of you who have left a review of the podcast on your favorite platforms. If you haven't yet, please head on over to that platform now and leave us a 5-star rating and a written review. It really goes a long way to help us get the podcast out to more people. Welcome back to the podcast. Jessica Smith, my good friend, love guru, dating coach, and international yoga retreat. What else? What else am I missing? Author, right?
Yes.
How did the book turn out?
The book is precious. It is gorgeous. I'm in love with it, and I'm super proud of it.
Congratulations again.
Thank you.
I hear people are raving about it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been so beautiful that, with coming out of the year that we've had. And so the year that we had, and then just winter, how, you being in your profession, people coming out of winter, they're just, a lot of times people put on weight and they're just not as, just at that place they want to be physically, mentally, emotionally. And so a lot of people have been reading my book recently, and yeah.
And what is the main premise of the book?
The title of the book is 21 Days to Feeling Gorgeous. Finally love the skin you're in and be the badass goddess you're meant to be. So it is a transformational workbook that I take women through 21 days of. The first week is all about mental health and changing how we talk to ourselves and how we think about ourselves and how we treat ourselves. And the second week is really about embodying those things. So I give a lot of physical practices for them to do and to bring that goddess out into the world. And then the third week is about manifesting and really stepping into your power. So one thing I love about this book is that it is simple yet powerful. And it doesn't take long to read, and the exercises that I put in there, they are, again, like just they got some behind them, yet they're easy to do.
Yeah, the way that we talk to ourselves is resonating with me today because I've had to do a lot of inner critic work. Like, how do I talk to myself? Would I allow somebody else to talk to me in the same way that I talk to myself? And the answer is no. So, I mean, I'm obsessed with boundaries, right? There are 3 types of boundaries for me: porous, rigid, and healthy. Well, the porous boundaries I was holding with myself were actually holding me back, taking me backwards instead of forwards. So I literally had to set a boundary with myself about how the way I talk to myself.
Good for you.
Thank you. You were actually a big impetus into that change because one of the last times that we talked, you said, Dave, you're really hard on yourself. And I think a lot of us are, but I found that to be very true for me. Yep. And I had to look deep where that was coming from.
Well, I love that we have the type of relationship because there's often things that you say to me and they've affected and had an impact on me. And I love a few moments ago you said that if someone else was talking to you like that, you wouldn't stand for that. I actually talk about that in my book. I open a chapter with saying, if you had somebody that called you every few seconds and said, you're this, you suck, you're not good enough, you're not strong enough, you're not hot enough, you're not smart enough, how long would you be friends with that person?
Not long at all.
Not long.
Yeah.
And I go on to say that we are a terrible judge of ourselves frequently. And, you and I, we've been friends for years. And, every time I look at you, I'm like, okay, you're brilliant, you're kind, you're loving, you're masculine, you're handsome. I can put together this rap sheet. And then it's like in your head, you have a whole nother dialogue going on that it's like, yo, you're a terrible judge of yourself right now. And, a lot of people do that. And a lot of both men and women do it. However, I want to give acknowledgement to women that we are under extreme scrutiny for a lot of time. Number one, it's our appearance, and that's the first thing that men are attracted to is how we look, and with all the pressures of the media and what we've been taught as young girls growing up, that's a thing, and it's really the standards are unattainable.
Yeah, the standards that we hold ourselves to, and then societal standards as well. So I can totally understand how much pressure that would put on somebody. And you've been a part of this podcast journey of mine since the beginning.
Yeah.
Over 3 years now. We had known each other a while before we recorded that first episode, and the podcast has grown. It's gone through a transition period, and what I've always noticed about you hosting your podcast, and I try to adopt the same kind of philosophy, is how much discernment we choose to share on the airways, whether that be on your radio show, The Game of Love, or the podcast by the same name.
Yeah.
And what's your take on discernment of sharing your personal life?
I am very private about my personal life, and I share very, very little on my social media, on my radio show, and my podcast. I just don't. I learned years ago, after I was dating a gentleman 4 years ago, I put him on my social media. I was very open about how we met and our story, which was so beautiful. It ended, and it was so beautiful. And when we broke up, everybody was involved.
Right.
My followers were involved. My friends were involved. My family. It was like this. And so it was like everybody had to go through the breakup. And for me being, in the relationship space, I had a lot of people that looked at me and they're like, well, if this was great and now you're broken up, obviously there's something wrong with you and you don't practice what you preach. And I'm like, no, I am one of the few people I know that walks my walk and talks my talk, and this wasn't my person. And so, being in this space, there's a lot of scrutiny. And so I don't choose to share a lot. And even with my children, I've shared things with you privately that I don't put them on my social media because I've had backlash of people saying very inappropriate, disgusting, scary things to me that I'm like, my personal life has been on lock.
Yeah, they're still minors, and so and they're still under our care.
Yeah.
Right. My daughter's 18 now. You have a college age.
Yeah.
Oh, did he just go into the military? Is that what I heard?
He's in the Air Force.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's freaking awesome.
I know.
That's so cool.
It is awesome, and it's like, how did I gave birth to this grown man? What?
Right. And that right there is a very, very natural, comfortable level of discernment for me. Like sharing that my daughter's 18 now.
Yeah.
She's going into her second year of college. That's appropriate as long as it's part of the share, the part of the story. Right. And likewise for you, you're beaming when you're talking about your son.
Aww.
Right?
He's amazing. I have great kids. I'm really blessed.
And then that brings us to today, because after one of your last episodes on the podcast, it was the most sharing I think I've ever heard you give. And you were talking about your most recent partnership ending and how it happened. And how does discernment come into both the relationship, sharing on social media, and the podcast for you?
When I share my personal stories, the way that I operate with my my podcast and my radio show up to about a month ago was I will talk about things in the context that they are going to help my audience. And, I don't want to sit there and share my platforms are not ones that I just go on and I ramble and I tell stories. Everything is like, okay, I need to help a person with this. This is a problem. And I will use my stories. They're anecdotal stories, really, is what they are. And a lot of it is usually I've already processed it. And I'm just like, oh, yeah, one time I was dating this guy and we did this and da-da-da. And there's a lesson, there's a moral to it. And yeah, that changed a few weeks ago.
Right. And we had recently talked about attachment theory for the first time, you and I,
Yep.
uncovering that you lean towards anxiously attached. I have an avoidant tendency in my relationships. And that what that does for you and I as friends for this long is we get to go a little bit deeper into our friendship and how we support one another.
Yep. And, something that's just occurring to me in this moment, we do have different attachment styles, yet together ours is secure.
Correct. Yeah. We're not dating.
Yeah. And so we can talk about things openly and you can, say things to me that, I can say things to you and share and it's easy and secure. So, there's a lot of growth to be had.
Sure. It shows up in friendships. It shows up in coworker situations. It shows up in family members too.
Yeah.
And where discernment comes in the conversation for me as an avoidantly attached person is I have that wall up. I have distance between everything that I do.
Yeah.
And one of the, not the cure, but one of the ways to kind of overcome the avoidant tendencies is to lean into my relationship, lean into the podcast. Part of why it rebranded is because I needed to lean in as opposed to pull back. There was not enough sharing in the Be Leave, Be Real, Be Bold version. Plus, that's a mouthful, too. Nobody wanted to say that out loud.
I never got it right. Every time I had you on one of my shows, I was like, I'm like sweating bullets. I'm like, come on. I'm reading it from a cue card.
Right. And I've noticed that pattern in my life as far as like talking about avoidant tendencies is like I put up roadblocks in front of my success, whether that be in a relationship or in the podcast or in my social media use or in my business, too. I make things very difficult for myself. And by naming my podcast this tongue twister of alliteration, there was another way that it showed up.
Wow.
And yet it still ended up in 83 countries. I don't know how. Like, people can't say it, but they can listen.
I want to take this moment and pat you on the back because you have been so committed to this podcast and you've brought in so many amazing people, talked about an array of topics that have been so beneficial for so many people. And it's been beautiful to see, to witness as your friend and watch the evolution of it and watch your evolution as well.
Thank you. That means a lot to me coming from somebody who's been there from the beginning and beforehand too. Yeah. The first time you and I sat down and talked, we were grabbing coffee. I think I had a first date the night before and I was just raving about it. And that relationship almost timing wise and situationally paralleled the one that you were going through 4 years ago too. We were both beginning new relationships right around the same time. And that's what brought us together originally.
Yeah.
Plus a passion for yoga and fitness and healthy lifestyles. So we got to connect over relationships beginning and ending right around the same time.
Yes. And then we've been friends throughout the last 4 years. So it's been interesting to, as we go in and out of relationships, right. And we've had each other.
Yeah, to check in with and to lean on.
Yeah.
Let's say that like we're both single, we could chat as friends. We could meet up for coffee at any time and have honest, real conversations with each other to support one another.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, it's been beautiful.
Yeah. And I want to dig a little bit deeper into what you shared on the podcast because it really led me to understand the attachment styles better. Coming from your perspective.
Oh, I love that.
You were out to dinner with girlfriends and you wanted to reassure your partner that you were you were keeping your side of the street clean is I think how you phrase it.
That's exactly how I phrase it. Yes. So I was dating this gentleman and it was mostly good. And there was things that we had been through some big problems. Okay. So we were fast tracking this relationship situation, which I think when you're fast tracking it, you get all the good feelings, and then the shit comes up quicker too. So, and I've heard from experts that isn't a bad thing, that you really want to get all that shit up front first and addressed. And then you can find out if you're either okay with it and can work through it, or it's like, oh shoot, no, we're not doing this. I'm not doing this. We're out. So I was okay with that. And so to go to this night in question was
it was the same night that I came and was a guest on your radio show, and you went out to dinner with the girls right after.
Yes. And he always watched my radio show, because you can actually watch it online. It's streamed. And I went out for dinner, and he texted me. He's like, great show. I said, thank you so much. When I'm with my girlfriend, or when I'm with anybody, I don't pull out my phone. Just to me, that's just, I want to be respectful. And I cared about him. So I pulled out my phone and I said, hey, I'm out to dinner. And he's like, oh, great. Enjoy. And I proceeded to text him a little bit. And I felt like I was being a good girlfriend, even though he hadn't officially claimed me.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
We'll get to the claiming. So he hadn't officially claimed me yet, but to me, I was already his. And I sat there and proceeded to text with him, and there was some banter and everything. And so I ignored my girlfriends to text this guy, and I'm like, oh. And we had a nice dinner, everything. I put my phone away, and just out of the blue, I just I leaned back in my chair, and I'm like, I am ready for my husband. I am ready. And as you know, you have this really cute nickname for me that I actually kind of love. But I've always had this playboy persona that you're like, you can't lock me down.
The man-eater.
I'm the man-eater.
So this behavior at dinner is a little bit out of character for you, kind of stretching you a little bit.
It's stretching me, and it was this powerful moment of like, this is what I want. I had a change in values, and I had gone from valuing variety and connection, significance, to I want certainty. I want love. I want contribution. I want a real interdependent, healthy relationship. I'm ready. And so in that moment, I'm sitting there with my girlfriends, and I'm like, I'm ready for my husband. You should have seen my friends. They looked at me like, holy shit, Jessica Smith just said what? And I felt really good about it. And my friends were very supportive, and it felt good. Left the restaurant after a lovely dinner, texting him, I'm Ubering home. I get home, hey, I'm home. He's like, I hope you had a good night. Yes, great. Get some rest. Okay, la la la. I'm thinking everything's fine. Send him a nice little heart, kissy emoji. And a couple days later, I hear his side.
Yeah. All of that sounded really secure, by the way.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
It wasn't.
Maybe a little bit out of character, you leaning into the anxiously attached tendencies there of like kind of ignoring your girlfriends a little bit, putting him involved in your dinner night out. So that was a little bit of a lean towards one side of the spectrum.
To me, it was secure. And it was also, this man is really important to me. And I know that my girlfriends are secure. And so for me, it was like, let's try it a little bit different. Let's take a pause from my girlfriends, and let's give him some attention. So to me, it was changing things up, but it was healthy.
Okay.
And
a couple days later,
you
hear his side.
I hear his side, and his side was, he was very displeased with my behavior. And I said, wow, and I was surprised, because I was like, whoa, because I'm over here, playing the part of the good girlfriend. And he's saying, it made me upset that when you went out for dinner, you said, I'm out for dinner. You did not say, I'm out to dinner with my girlfriends. And I had no idea if you were on a date, if you were some dude, if you were with 15 guys, if you were, I don't know, dancing on some bar. I don't know. And that just rubbed me the wrong way. And so all night I was like, where is she? What is she doing? And in this conversation, I'm like, and I was staying in light touch with you. And he's like, but still, I didn't know like the basis of what was going on. And I'm like, well, and that's when I had to get a little vulnerable. And I'm like, look, we haven't had this talk, but to me, like, I'm already yours.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, really, that still didn't land well, even though I just like took my little heart and my big heart. And I'm like, but
Right.
see, you are already my man. And to him, he was like, no, that was, you should have said, I'm out to dinner with my girlfriends. Hard stop.
Right. Sounds like expectations were brought in that were never spoken of. Maybe like a what we call covert contract being on one side and not spoken to the other person.
Yeah.
And thank you very much for sharing that. Thank you very much for opening that up for the conversation to get rolling through attachment theory, but also into this, the claiming of a partner or claiming of the feminine specifically, because in your story, in your share, when you were talking about it on your podcast episode, that's what was resonating with me is like, had he taken the lead at any point, because you and I had talked when, I joined you for dinner here at the house, I got to meet him. And so I had some more context than just out of the blue, it's over, So at some point during your length of your relationship, had the masculine energy claimed the feminine, then we would have direct communication,
That's right.
clear boundaries.
That's right.
And the expectations would no longer be under the underlying and covert.
Boom.
How's that land with you?
It lands perfectly. And that's exactly what it was. There was not a claiming. And you met him. He's like, he's a big, confident dude, and somebody would look at him and be like, oh, he would have no problem claiming a woman. And there was never a claiming. And his attachment style was very anxious.
Okay.
And I recognized it mid-relationship. And frankly, it was, I'm okay being, I'm usually secure. We've talked about this before, so it's a little, repetitive, but my attachment style is mostly secure unless I'm with an avoidant. And that's when I can spur into anxious. So with this gentleman, since he was more anxious, then that calmed me. And I'm like, okay, good. It didn't like trigger me into that anxiousness because he was on top of things all the time. And he expected, we had
a lot of communication, I'm guessing. Yeah.
A lot of communication, same time, every day. Like there was definitely, I can't believe I'm going to say this. There was like a system in place.
Okay.
Wow, that was so sexy. So I was very secure, and I was like, okay. And I knew that when I contacted him at this certain time of day, it meant something to him. And so I wanted to touch on those attachment styles.
I really appreciate that share because it sheds some light on what some people can do really well, and then what also can be the next step taken in leadership in a relationship that will just calm all anxiety whatsoever. Like anxiety on his side, I've been in his shoes before, and why I want to talk about this claiming of the feminine. Yes. We're not talking about like property. We're talking about like, by claiming the feminine, I'm taking the leadership in the relationship and creating something with my partner.
That's right. On my radio show, when you were last on, I shared with you that women need to be, of course, loved, cherished, protected, claimed. Like those are the biggest things. And something that I got from your last podcast episode that was really stood out to me was the masculine bringing in the trust and the safety. And going back to the claiming, when the masculine comes in to claim the feminine, I just got chills. I'm like, ooh. When they do that, it's, first of all, it's gives this reverence, respect, and adoration to the feminine. Like we get to sit there and glow as the feminine, and we're like, he loves me, he wants me, and it feeds our sense of significance and value. We feel valued.
Okay.
And so first there's that,
Yeah.
I am his.
You can open up a little bit more.
And then we can open because then there's the, there's the foundation of like, we are in a relationship now. And then that's when the feminine can blossom. We're like, okay. And when I say blossom, this is not for like the feminine's cue to then unpack all of her shit and her crazy and all that. No, that is, that's a call to action to all the ladies listening. This is about, like there is toxic femininity. So this is not the like, okay, I'm going to just, let all my shit fly. It's like, no, ladies, this is where we allow the most beautiful parts of ourselves to come out. So when we're claimed, we're feeling safe, we're seeing all these beautiful things, then I can show you what I look like without makeup. Sure. Then I can show you how I dance in my kitchen when I'm cooking dinner. Then I can show you the scary stories that I've things I've been through in my life. That's when I can open up and say, you know what, I've always dreamt of getting married in this one certain church or something. We can start to really bare our souls to you. And then also we get to, for lack of a better term, give birth to new creations. We can look at our partner and we're like, oh my gosh, being with you inspires me to do this. And so like there's all these new ideas and new ways of being that can come out of this security of having the masculine.
Right. So when you feel safe and you say blossom, I hear growth. I hear love. Love can expand. Love can elevate.
Yeah.
And that's the relationship between the two, is when the feminine feels safe, secure, and claimed in our context today, she can open, blossom, grow, and elevate the masculine to understand what real love is all about.
That's right. That's right. And to give you a scenario of how this can look in real time, let's say I'm at the club. Saturday night, I'm at the club, and I'm with my friends, and I am not claimed. I am unclaimed. And I'm there with my girlfriends. The man is not there, right? I have to be on guard then. I'm checking the perimeters. I am mitigating who's coming up to me and talking to me. I'm watching my drink. I am not dancing as seductively or as wildly as I like to dance because I don't want to draw certain attention. I have to be careful about things. And so I'm working in that context. I'm really on in that regards. Like I'm having to be my own bodyguards. And if I have the man there that has claimed me, who is also, as I said, one of the things that women need protecting, I know he's got the perimeter. I know a bunch of dudes are going to come up and want to buy me a drink and grind up on me. And so then I get to show up differently. I get to laugh with my girlfriends, and we get to act silly, and we get to, we're not concerned about our safety. And then we can have fun. It's playful, it's silly, we're dancing, and then, it allows us to have more fun and be more expressive and be more loving.
Yeah, that would be a sight to behold.
Right?
Yes, definitely. And you're newer to understanding the Enneagram, but we've talked about it a little bit. You're the loyalist, which is the 6, and you reiterating this concept of certainty and safety, and that's a core fear of the loyalist.
Oh, it's loyalist. We're so precious. And that's something that, with a lot of what's happening in the dating world, I think you even had on your Instagram yesterday, I believe you asked the question about why aren't men specifically in Denver?
Do men even want to be a husband these days? Yeah.
So I think there's a lot to that, but speaking to the claiming and the safety, I think a lot of men are not stepping into their masculine, so they're not claiming, and that just leaves loose ends. I mean, really, that's just like, you talk about having, like, you and Jess have, I don't know if I can say her name, but
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we need to edit that?
No.
What's up, Jess? That you talked about you guys having a contract and a relationship contract. And if you go to that extent of sitting down, and I was teasing you that you probably had your attorneys come in and it was like this, situation where you go through everything. But even in the claiming process, even if it's not as official as that, there is like, okay, I want you to be my girlfriend. And it can be serious. It can be romantic. It can be playful. Like, I had a guy one time that was like, oh my gosh, you are such girlfriend material. Would you be my girlfriend? And I kind of stopped and looked at him and I was like, yeah, I'll be your girlfriend. And he was like, good, let's get over here. And it can be as light as that. And then there's okay, what does that look like? Most of the time what I've had happen with guys is they're like, I do not want you dating other people. Are you okay with that? And I'm like, yes, because I'm so excited to be claimed.
Right.
And then there's of course, well, then that means you're not going to be seeing other people. And so there's then, more of a contractual conversation.
Clear, direct leadership in the relationship. And I'm glad you brought up the Instagram poll from this week, because where the immature masculine shows up in these days is with passivity. And I'm guilty of it. Absolutely. So 18 months ago or something like that, I was seeing somebody and never claimed. I was not in my divine masculine at all. And so when you were describing the night out at the club, what this feminine person wanted to be was to be claimed, to be led, to have direct, clear definitions of what our container and our relationship agreement would look like. She didn't want to have to step up and start that conversation. So she was waiting for me, but my passivity showed up and it created the need for her to stay in her masculine. Yeah. So we were bumping heads the whole time. Under the surface, it was not overt, and I continued to receive little stability tests. Let's call them that.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is Dave stable enough for me to feel safe here? And the question underlying, or the answer underlying all that, was always no. And so it fizzled out after a couple of months. And so upon learning that, I had to go on self-discovery again. Like, that's almost what I've been doing since you and I have known each other, since that relationship that was starting when we first met. Okay, why did these patterns keep showing up in my life? And that's the self-discovery that I need to figure out. And it definitely influences every area of my life. Yeah. I'm less passive at work. I'm less passive in my relationships with men and my family, and understanding how boundaries fit in with my family and my male friendships, my female friendships. Like, yes, I'm in a relationship, and my boundaries with my female friends have to change now.
Yep. That's right. And I love that we often, when it comes to relationships and dating and making changes and trying things different and being vulnerable and all these great things, can be intimidating. And especially for the immature masculine, they're like, oh, I don't want to do that. I'm going to get hurt. And, I'm going to put myself out there, and, she's going to make me look like a dick, and I'm going to feel like da-da-da. And when we can practice with other people before we're dating and going into relationships, if it's setting the boundaries, if it's being vulnerable, if it's just loving more freely and communicating, we can practice, with other people before dating.
Definitely want to dig deeper into leadership within the relationship context of, like,
yes, the masculine needs to step up. Okay. And there's also a role of the feminine that can move that along. So for the men and women listening, it's not just like, men, you must take care of this, and us ladies will sit back and, this is your chance to step up and shine. The women can play a role in this too. And a lot of it is around setting boundaries. So if there is a situation where the relationship is getting to a point where it can be more official, okay? And there might be this like time, I call it the awkward phase of dating. It's like, oh gosh.
Should I?
Yeah.
I kind of want to talk about this, but I'm scared.
Yeah.
Right? And there's so much fear there at that moment.
Yeah. So like, when's the right time and what? That when you're in that space, the feminine can come in and she can work in certain ways that can push that along. And sometimes it's in sweet ways. Now, we don't want to be like, going overboard, dropping hints, but there can be like hint drops and like, come here, it's okay, I would like this.
Right.
You know, there can be these subtle little things, and it can come with boundaries. So if it's like, I'd love to spend more time with you, you know, I'd love to see more of you. Okay, well, you know, as the feminine, we could say something like, well, I'd like that too. And, you know, I'm still dating a few other people, so I can't give you all of my time, and I have my family and friends. And yeah, I mean, if we were in something official, you know, I would absolutely make time for you, and I wouldn't see other. Okay, actually, that was a little much.
No, I actually really appreciate that, because I was going to talk about boundaries. That to me sounded like a boundary.
Yeah.
Of like, hey, I'm feeling some energy coming from you. This is going to be my playful, less serious check-in type, but very clear.
Yeah.
And what that sounded like to me was a call, a check of like, can this masculine person hear what I'm saying?
Yep.
What I heard you say was really direct. I would have certainly picked up on that.
Yeah.
And I almost like got really proud of what I was going to say next, you know, like it like helped me stand up in better posture. It helped me take up more space.
Yeah.
Because what I heard from you ignited that instinct within me, is like, wait, she's seeing other people? That helps me take the lead here. Or if I'm an immature masculine, I'm going to bow out.
Yep, exactly. And so I think there's places where the feminine can speak up. And like, one thing that just came to my head is during sex. And like, when there's the talk about like using protection, for example, is a great one. Like, if a guy's like, hey, can we not use protection? I'd be like, no, we are not seriously dating, so no.
Right.
And so that is one of those, again, those moments that's like, nope.
Yeah.
But if you're my man and you're clean, absolutely.
All right. Yeah, that consensual sexual conversation can be a good driver of intimacy.
Yeah.
Right. And it can actually inspire that conversation as well.
Definitely.
It's going to ignite in the masculine the need to take the lead in that moment.
Because that's so primal, right? Because
oh, yeah. And if he doesn't, then the feminine is not going to want to be claimed by that person.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with sex being such a primal act, and, you know, the masculine, you know, well, we're all driven by it, but, you know, with the masculine, you know, the thought of their woman sleeping with another man, I mean, that would send anybody, you know, in a tizzy, but especially for the masculine, that's like, oh, hell no.
Yeah. Well, very well said. So that story, that example sounded a lot like a good, healthy boundary, what you were saying that the feminine. What's a little bit more like a softer, subtler way to call to the masculine and say, hey, I'm here. I'm yours if you take the lead.
Oh, that's a good question.
Or I'm yours when you take the lead.
I think you can drop those little subtle hints at different times. So what not to do, like you're walking in the mall, okay? And you walk by a jewelry store.
Okay.
Ladies.
Before you're claimed, right?
Right.
We have to preface that
Yes.
this scenario is happening before the feminine is claimed.
Please, ladies, please, whatever you do not say something about a ring, about getting married, about like, ladies, be cool is what I'm here to say. Be cool. Don't even acknowledge the jewelry store. Okay. Because I've seen a lot of women that are just like, you know, they'll just go, you know, to that far extreme, but just dropping subtle hints, and they can be very situational. And I am flirty and playful, so you know, I'll find little opportunities to to drop those hints. And I'm not able to find a good example right now of what that looks like. But again, going back to the man, having that conversation of the like locking down,
defining the relationship.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That it can come, serious, romantic, playful, and I'm romantic and playful. And so that's how I would go, is just throw out something cute and yeah.
Yeah. What I found does not work from either side is any sort of passive aggressiveness.
It depends on how you say it. Because you could take that same situation, the same phrases, and hey, I like your home. Thank you. I actually don't usually bring guys back here because, this is my private space and I only want special people here. Hint, hint, wink, wink.
Yeah, right. That's certainly coming from the more playful side. And why I brought up passive aggressive is because you could say the exact same thing.
Yeah. Especially with the feminine being more emotional and in touch with our emotions, that if the feminine gets to a place where the claiming has not occurred and she can be just like a little like, what the fuck?
On edge a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Not feeling very safe anymore.
Not feeling very safe, and really like looking at this dude like, yo, do you not see what you got sitting right here? Are you not man enough to come over and just have a simple conversation, say, listen, I really like you. Let's make this exclusive. I want you to be my girlfriend. I want you to be my woman. I want to treat you like a queen. When the feminine is not being claimed and she's at that place that like, what the fuck?
Come on already.
Come on, bro. Like, why are you not doing this? Or, you know me, I'm a little more masculine in that delivery, but the feminine could also be like, why is he not choosing me? What? Like, we've had these many dates. Everything seems to be going well. Like, I mean, I'm good to, so there's different ways that can play out, but the underlying feeling is uncertainty. And so if she gets to that place, it can get a little dicey. And so for the women listening, it's like, don't let yourself get passive aggressive and make those snippy little comments.
But they can certainly be forward. They can certainly, this would be a great opportunity for a boundary.
Yeah.
Of like, the masculine comes to the feminine asking them for a date this coming weekend. And the feminine can set a boundary and say, hey, you know what? I've really enjoyed getting to know you. We've been seeing each other for 2 months. I'm not really interested in seeing you this weekend until we have that conversation.
Yeah.
And the masculine is going to know what that conversation is supposed to be because he's being called out.
Yeah.
And he's being asked to come out of that immaturity.
Yep.
We were going to talk a little bit more about do men even want to be husbands these days? Well, the response I received was a lot of this Peter Pan syndrome here in Denver. And that's the immature masculine, this boy psychology that hasn't grown into man yet. And the feminine in this scenario is calling to that masculine energy to come out of immaturity to become a mature masculine leader in the relationship.
Take some risks.
Certainly, yeah.
Like, when I have male clients and when I talk to men and when I hear like, well, I've been hurt and, I'm scared to put my heart out there. Like when they, trust me enough to tell me that. And it's just, I'm like, darling, we have all been hurt. Everybody that you pass on the street that is of adult age has suffered some sort of heartbreak. Okay, you're not special and unique, bro. Come on. Like, that is not your excuse to sit there and be passive and not have these conversations, to be scared to actually be a man. And so it's like with the gentleman, it's like, take a risk. Come on.
Yeah.
Like, there are millions of women out there that are looking for good men. I don't know why it's so scary to men that they're just going to sit there and continue to suffer. Because really, when men are not stepping into their masculine, they are suffering at a very foundational level. And I would hope, as the divine feminine, that we would beckon that. We'd be like, come step into your masculine, please. Like, please
take me.
Take me. We're like the sirens over here, like, come. And especially in Denver, there are hundreds of thousands of beautiful, intelligent, amazing women here. And they're looking at the guys like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
Like, what? You're scared?
Mm-hmm.
You're scared of what?
Yeah.
You're scared you're going to get your feelings hurt? So? You're scared somebody's going to say no? So? That's just not your person. If somebody says no, good. Because then you know that is not your woman. You can pack up, head on to the next, sir.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Rejection is redirection.
That's right.
And I really appreciate that share. And what I hear you talking about is actually when the masculine takes risks in the relationship, they're going to learn that is safer for them than if they were to do the opposite. Because you were talking about the masculine suffering.
Yeah.
The masculine suffers when they don't step into a leadership role in wherever they're at in their life.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about fear, the only way out is through.
That's right.
So step towards the fear, step towards where you're feeling resistance. And on the other side is courage.
That's right.
And then you're going to almost like layer after layer after layer of positive personal feedback. This is the inner voice talking of like, fuck yeah, you went for it.
Yeah.
That voice is better than, oh, you never went for it, bro. Now you're going to live in regret for the rest of,
And then you live in regret. You're still stuck in your fear. You still don't have a good woman. Like, you're still losing. You're still losing. One of my friends him and I were talking the other day, and he was sharing what was going on with him. And he's like, I just don't know why it's hard for us to say what we really want. And it was just kind of a passive comment, but it really set with me. And I'm like, why is it that we have such a hard time saying what we want? And you know me, I'm action oriented, and I'm bold and ballsy, and I'm like, okay, where am I holding back? And so it's been really fun because the last couple weeks since this conversation, I'm like, ooh, as soon as there's something that I want to say that I get scared to say, I'm like, we're saying it. We're saying it.
The things that I don't want to say are the things that I most likely should say in the moment.
And then I'm yearning to say, and then I need to say.
Yeah, I really appreciate the training forum that Men's Work does for me, because I get to take those things that I'm afraid to say out loud to the training ground first.
Yeah.
And then when I repeat them later on to people that I am afraid to talk to them about, I'm better prepared.
Yeah, and you're not, like, the fear dissolves.
The shame is gone.
Shame is gone.
So let's talk about action oriented.
Okay.
And the system that is being, I don't know, you were talking about it or alluding to it earlier, that the system was in place and everything was done on a daily basis at the same exact time. and I want to give actionable steps for the listener to be in their masculine leadership. Let's say two people meet on an app.
Yeah.
One's the masculine, one's the feminine. What's the first sign to the feminine that the masculine is taking the lead in that connection?
Asking questions.
Okay.
That it starts to he starts the get to knowing process. He'll come out like, tell me about this, tell me about that.
Tell me more about that.
Yes.
I love that you bring that up, because when I was on the dating apps, I met my partner on Hinge. It took me 5 questions to get a response back in a question form. And I started to see that trend of like, okay, I have to take the lead here to get what I want.
Yeah.
And what I want is, I really want this person to ask me about me, but I can't be entitled to do so. Like, it can't be fire a question, get a question, fire a question. That's entitlement. And that's the immature masculine showing up, not taking the lead.
Yeah.
So when I saw that pattern show up in my own experience, I'm like, okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
If the feminine wants me to work hard to get to know her and it takes 5 questions, I can fucking ask 5 questions.
5 questions. What's that, right?
And if I'm looking for a long-term relationship, then there's going to be 5,000 questions that I ask over the course of that time, right?
Exactly.
So we're talking about small potatoes here.
Yep.
If you can't be resilient enough to ask 5 questions of somebody you want to take out on a date and have to sit across the table from them and ask them more questions, let's use the app as a training ground.
Yep.
What questions work for me when I'm in integrity with myself?
Yeah.
All right, so what's the next step the masculine can take to lead in meeting somebody on an app?
Getting the phone number, making that first text connection. And then from the, then you got to keep going, keep asking questions and all that good stuff. And then getting on the phone. I'm a fan. Like, I want to talk to this person. And so getting the woman on the phone relatively soon. Like, I would say like in the 3-day period after getting your phone number, say, hey, I'd love to have a call with you and to be able to talk to you. And can I call you tonight, or can I call you tomorrow, or whatever? But getting on that phone, and if all is going well, ask her out on that phone call.
Right. I love that you bring up it's almost like a phone call to pre-qualify. Is this person, can they communicate on a basic level? Do I communicate well with them? That's what I want to find out. But I love the pre-first date phone call. And why I like that is because I keep getting this question of like, why am I always going out on first dates that don't go well? Well, we're not pre-qualifying. Or you're not choosing, you're accepting, right? There's a big difference between those two. Yeah. Are you accepting every date that comes along, or are you choosing the ones that you want to go on?
Exactly.
When the masculine takes the lead.
Well, when you were saying that, it reminded me of house hunting. That, a lot of times you can't go look at a house unless you're pre-qualified for a loan.
Perfect analogy.
Isn't that great? So think about it like house hunting. Yeah. You got to, the loan approval, that process, you got to be pre-approved for a loan, is just like having the pre-date phone call. Because the phone call is so important, because there's a lot of information that comes in. You will intuitively know if you want to see this person again.
I agree. Yeah.
By their voice, how they talk, what they're saying. Like, you'll get this intuitive feel if you want to go out with them or not. And I don't know about you, but this has happened to me several times that I'll get on a phone with somebody and I'm like, oh no, that didn't match what I just saw online. And then sometimes it's like, ooh, yeah, this person sounds exactly how I hoped they would sound, and I'm loving everything that they're hearing. Yeah. And
it was a phone call that was short and sweet and to the point, and I feel better about meeting up with this person because they took the lead. So I love that pre-qualifying phone call ahead of time. It's not 100% necessary coming from this masculine leadership context that we're talking about.
Okay.
What is very important is that the masculine ask for that date and create an opportunity for the feminine to make a choice.
Yes.
Right? The man doesn't have to make all the decisions. The masculine doesn't have to make all of the decisions.
Yeah.
He has to create the opportunity for a decision to be made.
That's right.
Right? So this is the leadership in like trying to get the first date.
Yeah.
And why I don't necessarily like go full force on that first pre-qualifying phone call ahead of the first date is because of that mystery piece. Like, we want to use a phone call or texting before a first date for logistics only. Like, okay, when, the where, and the how, right? And even if you choose to do a phone call, you can still get across that, like, okay, this person and I are going to vibe, because that process wasn't super controlling. It wasn't super domineering, which are all immature masculine traits. And that can be shown through text message arrangements of a first date as well.
Yeah. Well, I think with the pre-qualifying phone call, it can be short and sweet. And I think that really depends on the two people, because there's some people, it's good to have that. And as the masculine, hey, do you have time for a quick phone call? And preface it as being quick. And if you guys are vibing and if she's talking and you guys are just start going, keep going. And like the gentleman that I was speaking about earlier, and he called, we met on a dating app. He called and I said, I just have a little bit of time. And we started talking, and it was going to be a quick just quick check-in, but we started vibing so well that we started talking, and he's like, oh, wait a minute. I want to be respectful of your time. You said you just had just a few minutes. And I'm like, well, I said that because I didn't know if I would like you, and I could get off the phone if I didn't like you, and I like you, then let's stay on the phone.
All right.
And we ended up, our first phone call was 2.5 hours.
Okay.
And so I want to talk about the length of time, just be appropriate, when it comes to that quick phone call. And one of my rules is the man always asks me out first. I will never ask a dude out. If he doesn't have the desire or the balls to ask me out, we're not going out.
Yeah, he's not taking leadership in any, and that trend will continue. Like the way that the first date gets set up is most likely how the rest of,
exactly.
If somebody is habitually late for the first 5 dates, you're probably going to see a tardiness throughout the course of your relationship.
Forever.
Right.
And so going back to, I was just saying this on my Instagram today, be a man, have a plan.
Right, yeah.
So have like a light plan, and then you can co-create and fill in the rest. So for example, perhaps on the phone or after the phone call, you decide that Thursday night, 7:00, you guys are going to meet. And then it could be like, the guy could say, hey, there's this great sushi restaurant I'd love to take you to, or would you rather have tacos? And I love giving two choices to the woman. And that way, you're co-creating the experience, which is ultimately being led by that man. And also, one of the things that women always need to know is how to dress. And so she can sit there and say, okay, if we're going to the sushi place, I can look like this, and this is the vibe. So I love the two options for places to go.
Yeah, definitely creating the space for the choice to be made together.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
All right. And then let's say the date's going well and the masculine is taking lead through the conversation. And what I saw showing up similar to the message exchange on an app is that the first date, if the polarity is there, the masculine was asking a lot of questions. And I noticed hey, I haven't been asked very many questions back. And that's an opportunity to tune into that entitlement one more time of okay, what need is here? Yeah. What need is surfacing for me here? And why do I feel as if I can't sustain this first date with all of the direction and the leadership?
Ooh, Dave, I'm a huge fan of reciprocity. So reciprocity is key to me. So yes, going back to the 5 questions, I will have a guy I'll have him initiate the conversation. I want to know what he wants to know about me. If he's looking to find out about my profession, or those first 5 questions,
sure.
Let's just take those set the tone. So I will let him lead because I want to know, what is he interested in? Okay. And for every question, I'm going to ask him the same.
Okay. Be
like, oh, well, this is where I've traveled in the world. What about you? And so I will always bounce it off of him. So reciprocity is huge.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. The point I want to make for the immature masculine to become more mature is not to expect that. Understand that your leadership is very important.
It is, and sometimes within leadership, you have to be patient.
Very. Oh, good point. Yeah.
You have to be calm. So, especially on a first date, I don't care who it is. I mean, I am very confident. I'm in this, this is what I talk about all day. I can still get nervous from time to time. So for someone who is, let's just blanket statement, everybody is nervous to some degree on its first date, right?
Yeah.
So when people get nervous, they act a certain way. So especially for a lot of women, When they get nervous, they'll talk a lot.
Good to know.
That is good to know. Dave's like, I can't even get a word in. This is my podcast. No.
This is the fourth time we've recorded. I'm used to it.
Like, you just give me like these underhand softball pitches, and I'm like, and I'll go.
Creating structure.
Structure. And the divine feminine, she wants to share. She wants to share. So if you're like, hey, tell me about your dream vacation. Oh my God, I dream. And then it's like detail. And, so it can be nerves. It can be wanting to share a lot because she has a lot to give. And I also want to acknowledge the men out there that have been on dates that are like, Jesus, she wouldn't shut up. It was like a 2-hour date and she talked for, 1 hour and
45 minutes. Yeah, 57 minutes. That's hilarious.
That some women, when they are in more of that immature or a little toxic space, they will overshare too.
Yeah, that's certainly something to be aware of, is the overshare. If it's all playful banter and it's winding and it's just all over the place, that's actually a really good sign.
Yes.
Like when the feminine shares in that way where it's like winding from one point to, you're like, I didn't know what street you lived on when you were growing up, but now I do. Where did that come from? I just asked her what her dream vacation was, and now I know where she was born, at what time, and in which hospital. That's a good thing because that means that she's opening and feels safe.
That's right.
Right.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And I mean, when it comes to that sharing, if we could just keep going for a second, is, that's a great place for men to look out for those toxic traits and qualities. So one of like my no things is a person talking about their ex.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want to hear about your ex. I don't want to hear that she was crazy and she did this and that. Like, no. I mean, if date number 6, if I ask you, like, tell me about your last relationship, like what happened there? Okay, then tell me. But like date 1, if you have a woman and she's talking like, oh, my ex-husband, he like, whew.
Right. It comes back to how we started this conversation today, is with discernment. It's like, how much am I going to share when it's appropriate to share that?
Yeah.
And I do respect that not everybody's timeline is the exact same. Like everybody can't get to the 6th date and then let me just rephrase. Not everybody's going to want to wait till the 6th date to understand why their last relationship ended.
Sure.
Now, understanding how their last relationship ended is actually a good indicator of where they're at on their maturity level or their emotional availability level. Because how they speak about their ex tells a lot about the person.
Absolutely. I love that. You are so right.
So let's close out the first date in the masculine leadership context. Who pays?
He pays. Absolutely. Ladies, don't go for your wallet. Don't do that fake little go for your wallet. And for the audience, just for the records, I am old fashioned. I am old school. That's how I like it. I want him to ask me out, plan the date with a couple options, pick up the bill. Boom. And kiss me.
Yep. You have to go for it.
You have to go for it.
Otherwise, it's not clear and direct what your intentions are.
Yeah.
And if the men in Denver are being passive in the dating space right now, this is one of the reasons why they're getting friend zoned.
Yep.
Is because they're not taking action to be clear, direct, and decisive at the end of the first date, expressing where you want to take it next.
Yep. So it's like, if you are into this woman, and kissing, like, I'm a fan of kissing on the first date. One of my best guy friends, he's like, no, there is no kissing on the first date. And he has his reasons. So it's like, everybody has their thing. I'm just saying, this is one thing for me. I want to kiss because I need to know. I need to know if this is going to work.
Right. Much like the pre-qualifying phone call.
Right.
Yeah. It's a vibe and it's a spark and it's a connection.
Yeah. Sure. And if you are feeling that vibe with someone and if, like, everything's there, you would like to have that moment of intimacy and connection, right? And I love when guys on the first date, when it's gone well, that will ask me out on a second date.
Before the date's over?
Before the date's over, or when I get home.
Mm-hmm.
And say, hey, I had a great time tonight. I would love to see you again. How about it?
Mm-hmm.
How's Thursday? Great. I'd love to have sushi on Thursday. Let's go.
Okay. So when it comes to sending that text the night of the first date, if I'm taking the lead in the masculine, if I'm taking the masculine lead here, I might actually say, hey, let me know when you get home.
Yes.
And that gives clear direction, clear, safe direction. It tells the person what to do next. And then when I get that text that the person is safely home, then that's, hey, I had a great time. I'd love to see you again.
Yep.
And we don't have to make arrangements that moment, depending on the time.
Sure.
Right?
Right.
But
if
that's
it's
clear.
like 2 a.m.
Yeah,
and
right.
everybody just needs to go to bed, you know,
Right.
that can be a next morning.
And we certainly want to leave a little bit of that question there too. Hey, I had a great time. I'd like to see you again. And you can leave it at that.
Yeah.
Because that's clear enough, that's direct enough, and it tells us what the next step is.
Yeah.
Over the next couple days, the feminine and the masculine, if they take space, they're going to be able to listen to their intuition and say, ask themselves, do I want to take that next step with this person?
Yeah.
And that's why I really recommend that even in masculine leadership, the masculine give the feminine space after the first date. It could be 24 to 48 hours. As long as that text me when you get home happened, and then there's a little bit of an exchange, however you want to phrase that. We're not much on scripts around here, but
Right.
if you want to take that script, go ahead. Hey, I had a great time tonight. I'd love to see you again. And then give it space.
Give it space. Yet you don't want to get into that gameplay that I'm like, well, I'm not going to text her for the next 24 hours. When you are in touch with your heart, when you are in touch with your intuition, when you are in touch with yourself, you will know what's appropriate. And yes, you might have guidelines, you might have boundaries, and you and this person are two entities, two separate entities that have completely different personalities, vibes, energy, all of the things. So we do need to allow for flexibility. And so there might be like, oh, you know what? I'm going to wait and text her for like maybe like tomorrow afternoon when I know she's off work and she's having dinner. So I think it's important to, just allow for a little flexibility within it all.
I agree, yeah.
So there might be, that I love that text me when you're home, because for everything you said, it's creating space. It's being protective, which, I said that at the beginning of this, that the feminine wants to feel protected. So that after text, it might be, hey, I'd love to see you again. And then you give it space. Mm-hmm. It might be, hey, I'd love to see you again. If it's appropriate, you can make plans. Yeah. It might not be.
You might even just leave it as like, let me know what your schedule's like next week.
Yeah. Yeah, there's just, there's fluidity and there's space to navigate in it. And really, you don't want to take too much time either. And, like I said a moment ago, being in that gameplay, because that can screw it up. Because, Dave, I hear all kinds of crazy stuff from people. Right. I mean, I have one client that came to me. I can't even believe she said this to me. She's like, if a guy texts me, I wait a week before I respond. A week, Dave.
Okay.
I'm like, so I asked her, I'm like, what message are you communicating to this person? Yeah. And better yet, how would you feel a person that you were interested in waited a week to respond to a simple text?
As a standard, and like not even really having an exception to that rule.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and one of my rules is strike while the iron is hot. And so if the iron is hot, we're not saying book a trip to Vegas, but we need some forward motion going on. If I could share,
please do,
with the listeners, specifically with the ladies, what I do when it comes to the dating process. So I already shared that I'm very old-fashioned, and I want him to take the lead and do this. So my rule of thumb is the first 2 dates. He asked me on the first 2 dates. He plans and pays. And then on the third date, I will take the lead. So, and I'll have it be light, breezy, playful. Like, for example, let's say I've had 2 dinner dates with a guy and it's going well. We both know we want to see each other again. What I will do is text him and say, hey, I just got tickets to the Rockies game on Thursday. How about we go and have a hot dog and a couple of beers? So I've reached out. I've taken initiative. I've made a plan. I've already taken care of the tickets. And I've given him this like fun offer. Be a fool to refuse.
I get that. It would be hard for me to turn that down.
So for me, going back to that reciprocity, I'm going to reward him for good behavior.
We are just big dumb animals.
This, like, I call it an attaboy. No, but like, good boy. But no, it's me showing, but in all sincerity, it is me showing appreciation. Like, hey, thank you for taking the lead on all this. Now let me, and it might not be a Rockies game. It might be a, hey, I would love to cook you my grandmother's world famous lasagna. Do you want to come over on Friday night and we'll, listen to the blues and eat some lasagna and make out? That's what it's like dating me.
I'm excited to hear about the future of what dating is like in your world.
Oh my God, me too.
And I'm here to be your accountability partner
I'm sweating now.
Of hot girl summer, no dating, I heard.
No, not hot girl summer, yes, but do you want me to be really real, Dave?
Let's get real.
Okay. I am a very sexual person. And in all honesty, like, I have sex like a dude. Like, I can fuck like a dude. Like, I could roll in, knock it out, and roll out, and I'm like, I could be like that.
You're the man-eater.
I'm the man-eater. And am I blushing right now? I'm like, anyway, I have that ability, and I can be very casual and very relaxed. And like I've shared here today, and I've shared on my platforms, is I've had a shift in values. And with that shift in values came a shift in how I'm doing things. And really, like, my body's on lockdown this summer. Like, I won't be putting out, gentlemen, this summer, to be quite honest, because it's just not what is I'm valuing right now. It's just like, no, like, I want a man that's going to show up in his full, healthy masculine. I want to have an interdependent, healthy, loving, thriving relationship, period. And so when that's there, then you get the rest.
Thank you for sharing. So people aren't going to be sliding up into your DMs, but what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
They'll be like, well, never mind. I was going to send you a nice dick pic, but...
Speaking of immature masculine.
I don't get those, really.
Yeah, you have boundaries.
I have serious boundaries.
Yeah, and you make them very clear.
I do. So yeah, you can slide up into my DMs on my Instagram, jessicasmith.love. Slide in, and you don't have to send me a dick pic, but you can say hello. You can comment on one of my podcast episodes, a radio show, or ask me a dating question, or see how you can work with me.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so Instagram is the best way to get a hold of you. Tune into the radio station on Friday nights at 7 p.m.
Oh, you're good. Yes.
The Game of Love Radio on Mile High Sports. You can catch that on the app. Or is it streaming on YouTube, or is there another platform that it streams live that you can watch the video?
You can go onto milehighsports.com, and it is live streamed through there, and live streamed through the Mile High Sports app as well.
Cool. Yeah. Very cool.
And then I've been putting it out. So that radio show, it's now on my podcast and everything too. So my podcast, my YouTube,
Game of Love with just Jessica Smith.
That's right.
Well, thanks again for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
This was a ton of fun.
It was so much fun, and I feel honored to make my first appearance on the Challenger podcast and the new one.
Now that you can say the title.
Thank God.
Hey everyone, thank you so very much for listening to today's episode. I'm Dave Glazer in Denver, Colorado, certified strength and conditioning specialist who is passionate about sharing the benefits of fitness, nutrition, and personal growth for mental health. I've been running my personal training business online and in person in the Denver area for the last 10 years. And along the way, I started to discover there were common themes amongst my clients. They would come in for fitness and nutrition advice, and when we uncovered that it was their limiting beliefs that were holding them back from seeing their fitness and nutrition goals met, that's when we saw tremendous results. What I discovered after going through my own personal growth journey is the importance of having a safe place to discuss issues that come up for us. Whether that be we're not reaching our fitness goals, or how hard it is to stick to a nutrition plan, or it's things that come up in your relationship that you want to discuss with people who are not involved in your relationship, then our group coaching program is the right fit for you. We meet every single week with myself as your facilitator, and we will guide you to help you learn what self-awareness looks like through the Enneagram, attachment theory, and leadership in the relationship. So if you're looking for a little bit more support right now, please don't hesitate to reach out to me via email or Instagram. Click through the show notes below to apply for coaching today. And for a limited time, I'll include a 60-minute consultation with me one-on-one to learn a little bit more about what you're looking for support on. If you found value in today's episode, please share it with somebody that you believe will benefit from hearing the message. I look forward to next week's episode where we can share a little bit more about what self-awareness, the Enneagram, attachment theory, and leadership can do for you in your personal relationships. This is Dave Glazer, wishing you health and happiness wherever you're at in the world.